everyone. Thank you all for attending today's webinar, which focuses on how to provide a superior constituent experience. My name is Michael Nofel, and I'm the president of IDT. Also joining me today is Chuck Dushan of Highland Software, the creator of the on-base content services software platform. And Chuck, if you could advance the slide. So IDT is a longtime partner with Highland, which is the industry leader in providing content services technology. Today's presentation is actually a follow-up talk to what we gave to the Illinois Digital Summit back on May 9th. During that presentation, we introduced some concepts for how utilizing content services technology actually empowers citizens to better engage and interact with your agency in new and exciting ways. Now, if you missed that session, don't worry, we're going to catch you up very quickly as we do a deeper dive today on this very topic. Bit of background on IDT. We are a consulting and solutions provider dedicated to providing content services-based solutions for state and local government. Our firm is located in the Chicago suburbs and has over 25 years of experience in helping government agencies overcoming common challenges by combining best practices with configurable software solutions. Our solutions are designed to integrate with your existing line of business systems to rapidly improve efficiency, save taxpayer dollars, and provide a better overall superior citizen experience. We view our customers as long-term partners on a common journey for better government. So IDT is laser focused on solving specific problems which are common among the agencies we work with. Now you can go just about anywhere for document management software, but this only scratches the surface of the real problem. What you will find is picking the right solution means identifying both the short-term and long-term goals and having a technology roadmap to get you there, and understanding that all agencies must collaborate together. This means partnering with the right solution provider that can advise you along the way and selecting the proper content services platform that'll really fit your needs. So we're going to talk about providing a better constituent experience, which is consistently in the top 5 objectives for the agencies we work with. Very shortly, we're going to do a deep dive into a real-life examples of how public records management request solution can greatly improve the overall constituency experience, and at the same time, ensure all departments within your agencies are compliant with statutes, can fulfill these requests in significantly less time and with significantly less labor. We'll discuss in detail how this automated solution can be easily tailored to fit your agency's needs and provide rapid, tangible benefits in a short period of time. I hope you all enjoy this session, and please reach out to me or IDT directly with any questions or to learn how we can help you. And now I'd like to introduce Chuck Dushan, Government Specialist for Highland Software.
Thanks, Michael. Yeah, as we step through this, we will take questions at the end. So if you do have questions, please write those down and then we'll circle back to you. So when we talk about public record requests, it goes by a lot of different names in a lot of different jurisdictions. At the federal level, in the state of Illinois, it's both freedom of information. In other areas, it'll be called an opens record law or sunshine law. But the idea here is to be able to provide transparency and visibility into government by our constituents. If we look at the situation that we face, a lot of these records tend to be paper records, and everybody makes the best effort to keep them organized and keep them neat. So everything starts out well, and then as you start growing more and more volume, eventually it ends up like this. And this is kind of a sad story. This was actually a record center on the East Coast that got hit by Hurricane Sandy, and it destroyed lots of the paper records. Cost them millions of dollars to recover, and in fact, they're still recovering from it today. Fortunately, their insurance did cover a good portion of this. But the idea with OnBase is to streamline that process and make it easier to manage these records. So we're going to talk briefly about the process and an overview. We'll look at the OnBase solution that we've built for this issue, and then we'll also have some questions for you to think about going forward. So if I look at the business problem, it kind of is exemplarized by the state of Washington. So the state of Washington did a study that shows the fact that state agencies and cities and towns are spending hundreds of thousands of dollars a year, and this is the mean number on these requests. So state agencies can be as much as $400,000, county and cities are a little bit less than that, but again, still significant dollar amounts that are getting spent fulfilling these requests. The interesting number here that I find is that cities and towns, right, where people live, are really who's fielding most of these requests as far as the raw numbers. So, you know, if there's a new shopping center going in or your neighbor's building a 4-story garage, you know, that's the kind of information that's getting hit by cities and towns, whereas the state agencies may get less volume but more complex requests. So being a small city or municipality really doesn't reduce the burden of these public record requests. Real question comes down to the kind of the journalism question of who, what, where, and when. So the question is, who has the records? What are those records that they have? Are those paper? Are they electronic? Is it a physical document or a physical piece of evidence in a police case? Where are they storing it, and when did it come in to the system? And these can run a lot of different types of documents, a lot of different departments. So all of these departments can be subject to public record requests, whether it's police videos, it's road improvements, it's employee records, it's building and roads from a standpoint of permitting, or it's maybe community development if you gave tax breaks to a certain business. And the other thing is, it can be a variety of different documents. So timesheets or correspondence or emails or contracts, all of this falls into that public records law. The real issue is trying to get those records assembled and put into a packet of information that can be distributed. For the most part, most jurisdictions are doing this manually. So even if you have a front-end solution that actually gets the request in and lets you triage it, the actual assembly of that information is really where the bulk of the time is spent. And the other thing with respect to time is this is really the enemy here, right? So you've got two different time parameters. How quickly can you respond and give the answer back to the submitter or the requester to say whether you can fulfill the request or not? And then once you've agreed to fulfill the request, how long does it take you to actually assemble it? This is an interesting slide to me that on average, and again, this is state and local, on average, agencies are spending 260 minutes a day dealing with these public record requests. And on average, they're spending 1,000 minutes a day copying paper documents. So it's a huge time drain, and it's not going anywhere soon as far as going away. There's not too many people that are going to get less requests next year than they got this year. This one is interesting to me as well. We're seeing predatory requests. So we're actually seeing people who submit a request knowing that the jurisdiction can't satisfy the request, and they end up getting paid. So in some areas, they actually get paid $10 per day per document. So the ability to triage these and get those answers back to say, we don't have that information, here's why we don't have it, and actually kind of stop this ahead of time is a huge benefit. And the way that we accomplish that is through records management, to show that you've managed the documents correctly and purged them according to record plans, and actually be able to stop these or help stop these predatory requests. If I look at the OnBase solution, this is built on a combination of the OnBase foundational software along with a tool that we call WorkView or Case Management. It includes a web-based submission. It includes dashboards to help manage those requests, automated tracking and routing, so that's our workflow engine, and then reporting dashboards to actually show your performance. So if somebody came to you and said, how long is it taking you to fulfill those requests, you can actually deliver real numbers. And then finally, an automated electronic delivery of those request packages. So here in Cleveland, where we're located, there's 4 major TV stations. If a television station came in and said, I need to see all of the commissioners' travel records for 2017, you could assemble that packet of information, publish it out to our delivery mechanism, and then allow other television stations or other interested parties to actually access that without having to recreate the packet of information. When we look at what we're replacing, it really runs the gamut, right? Sometimes it's just email and network shares, sometimes it's checklists, sometimes it might even be electronic forms. But the idea here is that we can replace all of these inefficient methods, not only from the public-facing side, but from the workflow that gets generated and gets worked internally to satisfy the request. The real key here is what needs to happen versus what could happen, right? In a simplistic world, we get that request for information, we review it, and we deliver those documents back to the requester. In reality, there's a lot of information under the water here that allows us to really look at this in a more holistic view and really understand how complex the problem is. So the fact that we have all these possibilities is what makes our solution for using the case management or workview tools in OnBase even more valid, because it allows that caseworker, the person who's managing this request, to make some informed decisions before they proceed, as opposed to just following a static workflow. OnBase Case Manager and the public record request includes these components in OnBase. The nice thing is if you're a current OnBase customer and you have these, you don't need to rebuy them, but it leverages a lot of the core functionality that we have in the system. We also have the ability to integrate to our Esri mapping and some other components. So when you're buying the public record request, you're getting the foundational system that is OnBase. It is a workview application, so it's completely sensitive and it's an adaptive design. So if I'm looking at this on a laptop or a desktop computer or a tablet or an iPhone, I can actually see all that information. It's 100% web-based, or it can be, and it's a responsive design for those interfaces. I'm going to step in now and kind of do, like Michael said, a little bit deeper dive. We've elected not to do a live demo here, but we're going to step through the individual screens that will walk you through the solution. If you are interested in seeing a live demo, we can certainly make arrangements to deliver that for you. So on the public-facing side, you have the ability to expose an OnBase electronic form. We call this a Unity form that allows you to have form submission 24/7 by 365. So essentially that website becomes your new front office. This can be configured to your requests, allows the person to attach supporting documentation, allows to tell you how they want to view the documents. And once that gets submitted, it routes into an OnBase workflow. That workflow can automatically send a notification to that submitter telling them that you've received the request, that you're going to review it, and that you're going to assign a due date. So it's automatic, no intervention on your part, that email gets sent. Once you get that information in, we can also say that it's been accepted. So this is different than the one that I just showed you, in that the first one is just confirmation you received it. This one is saying, yep, we've accepted it, and we expect the completion date to be, in this case, April 25th. All of that information in the email can be configured and can be stylized to your requirements as well. So that's on the submitter side. Now we look at what this looks like internally. You can log in to the OnBase web client, and you'll see the actual workflow. You'll see all of the requests that came in. So you can see all of the pending requests. You can see all the requests that you're working. It allows you to actually customize what you're seeing in this columns. In this case, we're seeing just the new request. If I click the other line items there, you'll see all items assigned to me. So it lets you drill into this to see whatever information you want to see and be able to get that nice summary of what it looks like. I can navigate all of the requests. So I picked a different search here, and now I see all of the requests, including closed requests or ones that are in approval or ones that have been denied. So again, completely configurable to your requirements. If you denied a request and they went to court to actually say you should provide it, you can resurrect that. So it's a really nice, concise view of your entire history of public record requests. One of the things when you open the client, you'll actually see, so this is double clicking on one of those requests on the previous page, and you see that we have the main page of the dashboard here with icons that show each of those milestones. So in this case, the request was submitted on 4/11, and I highlight that I have it due by 4/25, and the response is back due to me by 4/16. As we complete each of these tasks, we will actually change the color of those icons and log the date and time when they were actually completed. In the upper right-hand side, you'll see the first exposure to OnBase workflow. So these are actually ad hoc tasks in workflow that allow me to step through the process and either assign people or move the request on to the next step of the workflow. I have the ability, as I research documents, to put them into specific buckets in the workflow. So in this case, we're splitting between non-releasable records and records that are awaiting redaction. So this allows you to go through and actually assign departmental users, and those departmental users can say, I have records that pertain to this request, but I'm not sure that there's something that we should release. So this allows your legal folks or your law department to actually weigh in and say whether or not records are releasable or not. We also have the ability to say whether or not a document needs to be redacted. So we can actually run those redaction documents through a separate workflow, and I'll show you that in a second. Once we accept or deny the request, that's actually here in workflow as well. We'll actually see the next item approved. So I can go ahead and accept that, and you'll see that it turns the next request approval green and logs that date and time. Again, because this is built on the OnBase workflow engine, these steps can be configured to your requirements. However, we do have a standard workflow that's much more cost-effective to deploy. And all of those items are actually configurable as well that allow you to actually step through this process one step at a time and make those decisions on what the next step should be. I can actually send correspondence back to the submitter. So as we're compiling this, I can communicate back to my submitter or back to my requester and generate that information back to them. You'll see on the lower left-hand side all the information that we've compiled so far to satisfy this request. I can assign departments. So if a request crossed multiple departments within your jurisdiction, I can actually click and select that department. I can select a specific person for that department, and I can assign them a specific task. So that'll then show up within their workflow queues. And then individually at that department level, I can also accept or decline the request. So if I sent this to the juvenile court and the juvenile court said, no, I can't comply because the records are sealed, I can actually reject that request at the department level. The main view, and again, this would be the administrator, can view all those departments and all those statuses of where we're at. So if there was 5 or 6 departments assigned here, I could actually take and see from the administrator side where each of those departments are in their completion of the tasks. And that would show up on as a line item right here underneath departments assigned. I can retrieve content directly from OnBase. So if the document was already in the OnBase system, I could go out and search and attach it. I also have the ability to bring in documents that are not in OnBase. So I can actually scan in or drag and drop a document into the system that maybe wasn't in OnBase. But if it is in OnBase, I can simply attach it to the request and make a copy. That allows me to actually do that through the drop-down menu here with our workflow task that just says, add the document to this request. Key feature here is that we're not changing the original document. So we're actually making a copy, just as you would with a photocopy, and actually attaching that version of the document to the request. I can see all of the records that are open. So this allows me to pick the one that's appropriate. And again, that's with that unique identifier, that 89 on the front of it. And I can add that content in and then drop that into the appropriate bucket as I showed you earlier. The difference here is this is the department doing this versus the administrator. If it's releasable or not, I can flag that here. So it's just a question of changing that pull down to say, yep, this looks like a releasable record, or does it need redaction, yes or no. You also have the ability to automatically do redaction, but that's going to be heavily dependent on the image quality itself. So this way you can actually manually route them through redactions. A lot of folks that I know actually route everything through the redaction review just to be safe. When I issue the redaction request, it actually goes into a separate queue. And notice that at the top of that, we've changed the banner headline to actually say it's pending redaction. Here we see the life cycle again in a separate redaction workflow that allows me to go in and actually do that redaction. So this is showing our manual redaction where I start the redaction, I draw the box around whatever I'm redacting, and then I mark it as completed. And that will automatically move it from that awaiting redaction into the releasable records bucket. And then finally, we can create a summary of the findings. So this is actually a little letter that can be sent out to the submitter that explains what we found and what all those releasable records were. If there was physical records here, we would actually provide the location contact, the location address, and a phone number to arrange for that person to actually go see that information. So if it was an artifact, if it was evidence, if it was something else that was subject to release but couldn't be converted into an electronic format, you can actually direct them where to go to see that information. And then finally, we can send those records out. So at this point, we've completed our request, we've compiled everything, and now we need to distribute this out to the submitter, and we can do this a couple different ways. The one that we show, and that's part of the standard solution, is using a tool that we call ShareBase, which is our file sync and share tool. So when I say send records and close the request, I change the header and show that it's completed. I've actually marked the request as closed, and we generate this link to the ShareBase folder where that information can be viewed. We can format an email, much like that summary email I showed you earlier, that now goes back to the submitter and says, hey, we've completed your request. You can find the summary letter attached. And then for the next 60 days, here's a folder where you can get that information and download it. That 60-day period is completely under your control. You can password protect these links, and you can do it all with very little manual intervention. And then when that person actually views this, they get that same letter I showed you earlier. And when they click the ShareBase link, it's going to take them to a ShareBase folder. That folder is going to have all of the documents that we composed, including the redactions. So we can actually pull that document up. Depending on the rights you provide, you may give them just the ability to print or see this, or they could actually download a copy to their local machine. The reporting dashboards are really nice because it is built into the solution, and it allows you to see a graphic format of how you've performed against all these record requests. So by clicking those individual bars there, the Cindy Smith, Lee Adams, you can actually interact with this. You can see the average time to approve. So it's taking me 3.6 days to actually review and decide whether or not to fulfill a request. And then once that's happened, it's taken me a little bit over 5 days on average to fulfill and create all the records associated with the request. This is an example that we actually had. Jim Morrison, who usually handles this solution for us, actually submitted a request, and this was the response that he got back. So it's actually going to take 21 hours to make copies of all these documents. They were going to charge $173 to do it. So this is something that literally is 1 or 2 clicks in OnBase that they were saying was going to take, almost 3 hours and 45 minutes. So significant cost savings and significant efficiency savings in using the OnBase solution. We had the other one, this is actually City of Cleveland, which we don't like to call out too much, but they actually looked at another solution called GovQA. And it's an online portal that, again, is a nice solution for actually tracking those requests. But the key here is that they really don't do anything to automate the back end of this system. And that's really where we kind of step in to be able to provide that back end automation. Almost anybody can manage the request on the front end of this. The real work is how do we walk it through the process and expedite it for you and your staff. So that's the highlight, and it really is kind of sad, but that's kind of where we help fix those problems. As you look at your current situation today, the big question is, depending if you're the decision maker, that's awesome. If you're not the decision maker, you have to figure out, is there concerns or issues with your current process? Because if those decision makers don't think that you do have issues, it's probably going to be, not a very successful effort. You need to look at how many record requests you're currently receiving. That said, as I said earlier, we see a lot of the municipalities and cities that are overwhelmed by these requests. If you're a you're a department or a jurisdiction that's not seeing a lot of requests, maybe it doesn't make sense. Is there a central location today where those requests are routed? Is it the city clerk? Is it the public information office? And that would really lead you down the path of using a solution like this, because they could be the ones that are triaging this like a medical emergency room to figure out which requests are important, which requests are going to be fulfilled, which requests you can't fulfill. And then the other one is, are you currently distributing records electronically? And the general answer we get to this one is not very often. Most of the time it's still paper-based, it's heavily dependent on photocopies, and you're either shipping this out or mailing it or having people come in and pick it up. And then looking at how many requests you're getting per month or per year, obviously that ties into the second point. And what's the average turnaround time currently for a public record request? Most of the time, to be honest, we don't get answers to those last two because nobody's really tracking them at that level. So again, if we look at the whole public record request management, you're looking at it really a number of these areas. So the first one is the workflow, the actual processes that are going to occur to fulfill those requests. The next one is actually the management of those electronic forms and documents and the data associated with it. The user experience, both internally and externally. So both your constituents and your employees, right? How is the system going to help them? And then finally, the integration piece. So maybe it's an integration to tie into your, let's say your cashiering system, if there was a charge for these requests, if it's a commercial request. You can actually tie in and integrate. So all of these components are pieces that OnBase can assist with, and it's where we kind of excel as far as providing this information and providing solutions across the board. So if you do have questions, I'll turn it back over to Mike and see if he can't summarize for us.
Great, thank you, Chuck. Well, I hope you all enjoyed today's presentation on providing a better constituent experience. We'd love to hear your feedback, answer any questions you have, or discuss how we can help you further in coming up with better government. So again, thank you all for joining, and have a great day.